All right, today is December 25th, 2024. Today's topic is going to be Exodus 15 decoded, Hanukkah, and the whole drone slash orb fiasco. Um, I guess we'll start with the drone topic. I don't have any footage for you today. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, I've been putting out orb footage for the last couple of years. I've been seeing orbs for since 2015. I mentioned before after I read the Torah, I believe it was the same night. I finished reading the Torah, and I remember going outside, walking my dog in the rural part of Las Vegas, Nevada. At the time when I lived there, I grew up there. Um, I felt like these orb slash wandering stars were um, were purposely present and getting my attention, and and this stuff is kind of weird stuff to talk about, but I've been having those kind of situations ever since then. Does it have something to do with reading the Torah? Possibly, I don't know. um, the thing that I recall is there's a gentleman by the name of Prophet Yahweh, which is borderline blasphemous. No. But he's a follower of God, of course. And he also lives in Las Vegas. I remember seeing this a long, long, long time ago um, on TV, on the news. I guess um, he claims that he read the Torah or the Tanakh in Hebrew. And ever since then, he had this ability to communicate with these orbs, even in broad daylight, which during the day, they look like metallic craft. At night, they look like shining orbs, which I believe it's one and the same. Um, it stuck in my subconscious for years. I wasn't saved at the time. I didn't believe in God at the time. I just thought it was really weird. And at that time, I didn't know anything about like Hebrew or anything like that. And the Old Testament, there's that whole connection of that. I thought it was more like of an Aramaic type religion at the time when I was a young man viewing this stuff on the news. And yeah. Anyways, you can actually Google this guy, and he has a couple of news segments that I guess he called the news and said, I can communicate with these you know with these orbs or these aliens, but they're not aliens. They're more along the lines of the biblical realm, and you can actually view these. Prophet Yahweh summons UFOs in Las Vegas, Nevada, and you'll see him do it in broad daylight. But there's some truth to this because, like I said, it's stuck in my subconscious for years after that. And then when I read the Torah, I noticed the exact same phenomena. Um, and then, of course, I gravitated to the Holy Bible, the New and Old Testament, uh, not just the Torah, not just the Tanakh, but the New Testament as well. I believe it's all connected. Um, but yeah, it's definitely some weird phenomena out there, and I know there's a lot of buzz going out there saying there's people are witnessing these drones. I purposely look at it as almost like a slap in the face because I know that this phenomena is not man-made. It's something supernatural, something that's telepathic, that happens, and it happens at any time that you actually put some thought into it or some prayer into it. Or I know some people will say that you're summoning demons. I mean, if you're praying to the Lord, hey, Jesus Christ, show me a vision or something, or and then you see something like this happen. Is it from the devil? I don't know. I'm not saying you should say that. Go show me a vision. I'm just saying that things like this just happen after prayer. I don't think you should ask God for anything. You shouldn't tempt the Lord for anything. I just think that if you're a spiritual person and you believe in the blood atonement of Jesus Christ, and you're having this phenomenon happen, especially after reading the Bible or the Torah after prayer, there's something to it. And then the Bible clearly gives us explanation to all this stuff, right? So the Bible clearly says you'll see angels ascending and descending on the Son of Man, right? Jacob saw it. You see this throughout the Bible, right? You also see that in Genesis that God made the sun, the moon, and the stars, for signs, seasons, you know, and obviously they're for signs, right? The elite even knows this, sorry, and they even made a movie called Signs. So for the unbeliever, you see it as these aliens from a distant place, right? But as a believer sees it, you see it as signs. That's the that's the big reveal of the movie. If you've never decoded the movie, that's what it's made for: the unbeliever and the believer. So the believer sees it as signs. And why do you think they named it signs? Because that's what they truly are. Um, the unbeliever will see it as something that's otherworldly. So if they are for signs, which I've talked about it many times before, this aerial phenomenon, I believe a lot has to do with angels and demons, of course, and for signs. And I believe that every man has their own space. So when you see a shooting star, when you see a wandering star, I believe these are messages for us. And they're also the outcome of us. Kind of like a sum total of your thoughts, actions, and deeds. And you can get a glimpse on where you stand. And I believe that it's reciprocated. I mean, it's given back what you put out in a weird way. For the sake of not sounding new agey, I'll leave it at that. Um, but where I get this from is just from observation. I observe my day. I observe these messages, right? These signs in the sky, and I see how my day plays out the next day. Same thing with odd things that happen, all the way down to you know something that's just irregular in your day. You find a snake under a rock, right? Does it mean something? You know, I know I'm radicalizing a little bit, but the heavens are closer to God than anything else, right? And when you observe the heavens, are we seeing a glimpse of our connection to the heavens? Are we seeing a glimpse of our subconscious? Are we seeing a glimpse of ourselves or a glimpse of God's perception of ourselves? Don't know. But all I know is, to a certain extent, we were supposed to observe these things, right? Watch. Jesus tells us to watch. Do we worship these things? Do we fear these signs and symbols in the sky, or these signs in the sky? No, we don't. Um, Anything can be averted. Anything can be changed through Jesus Christ. Of course, I believe that. I don't think we should be worshiping or like zodiacking the sky to our lives. By all means, no. But if you see something out of the ordinary, out of that's irregular, and you feel something, just pay attention to it. Um, right. So if you see these sky messages, a message, a messenger is an angel. So if you don't think they're angels and demons up there, these stars or these light orbs, well, an angel is a messenger. You can check out the meaning behind angel. It means messenger. So if you see something in the sky and they're there for signs, it's a message. It's a message for you. You just got to be able to go to the Bible. You got to be able to trust in the Bible for its understanding. Um, and I believe it's light works. It's light language. So when you see it with your eye, it's irrefutable, almost, meaning that soon as that light language, that light, that you see it, that I believe that's the connection for you. Um, is it inevitable? No, I mean, I believe all things can be changed through Jesus Christ. I'm just saying that there's a light language that's going back and forth between you and that messenger. Um, and those messengers serve the will of God if they're angels. If they're demons, they serve the will of Satan, right? So everything that God does, Satan imitates. Are those the UFO aspects of things? Is that God's brilliant system warped or tampered with? I don't know, and I don't know. No one knows, and I'll leave it at that. But I just know that I've been putting out these videos of these orbs and connecting it biblically, and I know this is a very radical view of things, but this is the point of view that no one ever talks about. We never use the Bible to decode anything. In actuality, we should be using the Bible to decode everything. The Bible is our handbook in this galaxy, even though there's no galaxy, the way that they talk about it. It's our handbook to navigate through here. So if we have a question about something, we can find the answer in the handbook. That's the handbook of the universe right there. It's the Bible. So if we're seeing these orbs that mysteriously are shown, what are they for? And where do we find this orb language? Well, we find it in Genesis 1 because God describes the creation process of all the things that we see and feel and touch and taste around us, all the way down to the animals, right? And then where else do we find these phenomena? If we're seeing these things ascend and descend upon the earth from the heavens to the earth, well, where do we see that at? Well, we hear Jesus talk about it. We hear Jacob talk about it. And if these things are called angels or demons, right? And angels referred to as a messenger, well, they must be messaging something or someone. They must be messages, right? So they are signs for you, maybe for the earth. Like I said, when you can see a worldwide or a countrywide comet or meteor in the sky, right? When every couple of years you see one, that's a message for us. That means something's around the corner, and usually you can do your homework around this meteor, where it's being seen, the name of it, or the names of the things around it, or the or the stars that it enters, or whatever, the star area, like Virgo or something like that. I'm using that as an example. You can decode the meaning of what that meteor symbolizes. It's for the world to see, therefore it's a worldwide message, right? So if you have a blood moon or an eclipse, same thing. You can, if the eclipse runs through 7 to 9 different places called Bethlehem, well, it probably means something. We just got to figure out the meaning behind it. And if you study ancient cultures, the majority of the cultures take eclipses as a bad omen, as a bad sign, as I spoke about before. Well, there you go. You put all this stuff together. You don't obsess over it. You don't worship these things. You don't try to avert it. It's God utilizing his timepiece to warn you, to warn us. Um, and all the way down to the collective level, he does it through like the sun and the moon and the worldwide meteors, to the individual level, like shooting stars that happen real quick that only you see, and the guy next to you turned his head. Well, because it was meant for you. And I'm not saying that you should be doomed to that belief, to that, oh, like, oh no, now I saw a shooting star, like, no, like, just, it's a peace of mind. If you think that's radicalizing these signs and symbols, well, try it out for yourself. I've talked about this many times before. Um, And it's not like it's all doom and gloom either. I'm just illustrating these things that they mean something. They mean something, and it's up to us to understand what it means. And like I said, and when we see these things, it's light language, almost like in a weird way, like a fiber optic type of thing. Like anyway, I won't get into any of that. But when I saw the whole drone thing, the whole fiasco on TV, ironically, I know nobody will believe me besides a couple people at work that me and my buddy were having this whole dispute about drones and the whole weather balloon thing, um, coming over, invading our airspaces. And of course, I have that natural pessimist attitude, um, thinking that everything's a false flag or everything's on purpose. And we had this whole little back and forth thing, and he was saying that like uh, our defenses, like we're not as strong as you think, and anybody can just creep over the country if they wanted to. But ironically, we had this back and forth explanation the day before all this stuff came out. What are the odds of that? So I took it as a sign to talk about it. Um, and of course, the first thing that popped in my head, I'll tell you the first thing later on that evening of the following day, when I was like, what does all this stuff mean? What what is it all for? And the first thing that popped in my head, I know other people and other channels talked about it, and I'm like, man, they beat me to the punch. Um, yeah. Anyways, it was about regulation. Regulating or deregulating the whole drone aspect, like regulation of AI in general. That's where I was going with it in my mind. I'm like, what are they doing this for? They're probably going to regulate the airspace, but like possibly protect, have these things in a protected class, like the civil rights of AI. Here we go, the attack of the drones. And they're fighting for their civil rights because there's a lot of money to be made, right? And commercialism AI is a beautiful thing if we can um, eliminate the human aspect of things, right? So if you have drones delivering stuff to you, well, you don't need no Sparks drivers, do you? If Amazon would love that, right? And we already know these companies are already trying these things, right? There's too much money for them to completely eliminate drones from low airspace, but I think they're going to establish or regulate it to some certain extent. But at the same time, I saw a video. Some old man went to jail for shooting one down because it was a I think it was a Walmart delivery drone that they were using. I don't know, but he shot it down, and because they're delivering something, he was like, "Well, it was dropping a rope down, and he didn't know what was going on. He was an older dude, and he shot it down. The police took him to jail. It's destruction of private property, I guess." Um, so I put two and two together. They're probably going to establish this stuff, and I've heard about similar stories towards like the smart car deliveries or the little carts. They have the little cart drones that drive on the roads. The same thing. People are like abusing them, kicking them over, and what they're going to do is establish AI civil rights, right? AI rights. At some point in time, they will. Maybe is this ushering that time into it? I don't know. Quite possibly. Um, and or the deregulation of or the regulation of I guess that would be more like deregulating it, right? Or adding or eliminating that kind of stuff. I don't know, but I just know I'm pretty sure that there's too much money to be made in these things, and they're going to establish some kind of rule of right to these things. So I think you know a lot more of the stuff's going to be flying around at some point, just like how you see off those futuristic movies. The second thing that popped in my head, like the next day after that, I was like, wait, so when I upload my orb videos, people are not going to believe them anymore, right? The average or the amateur stargazer won't be able to differentiate what's a drone and what's an orb, right? People are just subconsciously and automatically gonna dismiss it. So I call it the drone implant, right? They're implanting us with the whole drone theory. So when you see some strange aerial phenomena, you're gonna be like, nah, it's just a drone. Or when I upload, or when so and so uploads you some flying disc that's that's hovering over your house. Oh no, that's somebody playing around with some crazy drone, some big drone. Automatically, people are just gonna dismiss it now. And ironically, of course, this disclosure stuff starts coming out, right? And then I know mine's a little small channel, but all it takes is just one person to be like, well, there's these orbs, and God may be involved. Well, they don't want God to be involved. So what do? We put out drones. It muddies the waters. And I even tested this theory um, the night before last. I got off like at 1 a.m. and I had to be back at work like at 10. And I went to the gym and I was just thinking about it, pondering on it, about these orb things. And so I got out of the gym about 3 o'clock, and it's like 3:45. I live like 30 minutes away from the town in a little rural area. Even the town is a rural area. It's a small town. We live out here in the middle of nowhere, and I stopped off on the side of the road, and I was like, you know what, drones wouldn't be out at 3:45 a.m. You know, I said a little prayer and all that stuff to Jesus, to God, and I just wanted to see if this drone thing was it started like invading my own mind. Like maybe they are drones all along, and it's the government. What if there's the government just practicing these things, or they're finding anybody who's awake at night. They just go towards the light and they just start messing with them. And I know a lot of Christians out there are like, oh my, you're praying to these. No, I'm not praying. I'm praying to God. Like, God, show me the truth about this stuff. And and I suggest to you that we should utilize our Bible a little bit more to interpret these things. Um, and so I started going home. I gave up. I was like, that's not happening. Maybe they are drones. And then I look over to my right, and a big old bright light catches my eye. And I'm like, holy crap, here it goes. It's going down. What are the odds? I haven't seen it until I started thinking about it again. And I pull over, and sure enough, I got video of it. It's very grainy because where I saw, where it got my attention was really dark. And it's super grainy, but it's there. If you want me to upload those orb shots, um, the new ones, leave it on my comment section, and I will. The reason why I'm not doing it, because the quality is really poor compared to the quality I put out before. If if you have any questions about the orb videos I put out, just go back and watch my my orb videos. I have, for the last year, I have probably like 5 of them out. I do them every few months. Um, yeah, so check it out. Again, if you want me to leave them, if you want me to do a video on them or talk about them, the recent ones I saw, I'll do it, or I'll just do a little quick short on it. But it was a confirmation in me, and there's no way that the army would know, or like the government would know, that I would be pondering on these things, and it was detrimental for me to know at that time. No, is it a are these things drones the whole entire time? They might be drones for God, but for human beings, there's just no way that people would wake up in the middle of the night or still be up, and you know what? We're going to fly these things. We're going to prove it to that guy in the middle of nowhere, just to throw them all up. It's just impossible. These things are supernatural. I know for a fact. The stuff that they're seeing over there in New Jersey and all that stuff, those don't look like anything of the stuff that I've produced on this channel. So go back and check those out, because these orbs that I talk about and I show you, they get real bright and they disappear, and then all of a sudden they're over here, get real bright and disappear. A lot of people think that, oh, it's just one giant craft and lights are just going around the craft. That's not so. these lights are entities themselves. They're conscious, and they have the ability to, I believe, to be able to know what you're thinking, or which is really scary. And, it's a very scary thing. But again, I've never been personally harmed by this stuff ever since I've been having my own personal quest with this kind of thing. Again, like I said, go watch those videos on. Also, if you don't believe my videos, go watch that dude, Prophet Yahweh. Just Google it. Las Vegas, Nevada. Um, you know, Prophet Yahweh summoning UFOs. It'll blow your mind during the day, which I've seen them many times during the day, and I can agree that when you do see the same phenomena during the day, it looks metallic, but I don't believe it's metallic. It's just I believe that's what people think, that it's glaring off the sun, but it's really not. They're actually the light entity themselves. Anywho, that was way longer than what I wanted to talk about on these dang drones. Um, Again, like I said, it's muddying the waters. I think ultimately, regardless of what's going on, it truly is, because it even had me self reflect on like what I'm seeing out there in in the middle of the night. But I know for a fact, 100%. Like I said, I got recent video on it, confirmation. There's no way in heck that any kind of government or China or anything would have any technology to the point where it's reading my mind. Like knowing that, reading my prayers. Doubt it. And again, you know, this whole, well, maybe not again, but this whole phenomena is a very layered, I guess, false flag, or a very layered agenda to it. People, the government or the powers that be can use it as a propaganda piece, saying that, China's doing this, and people will believe it and get on board, right? It's scaring the crap out of Americans. It's just a different version of Pearl Harbor, with just maybe without the destruction, or maybe they are releasing, different variants. And people say that, oh, they're probably releasing some kind of, variant over America. They don't need that. Chemtrails are doing it all day long. They can easily put it in the chemtrails, easily. And nobody says crap about chemtrails, but they freak out over drones, right? What's the new normal on that? I think that it's so weird. So if the media talks about it, therefore we have to subscribe to it. But how come nobody subscribes to chemtrails spraying crap all day long? And I've been uploading videos on that too. Okay, so that's all I'm talking about when it comes to the drones for now. If you have any questions, just leave it in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer it. If you want me to talk more about this kind of stuff, let me know too, and I will, because I have a lot more to say, and right now I'm kind of suppressing it. So, for the sake of time, okay. So Exodus 15. Um, okay, all right, here we go. Oh, I did a video last week, or 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half ago, on the Santa Claus movie. It was a Santa Claus decode. I'm a little rusty on my decodes, and it's not as clean as the ones I've done before, but it was still good, and I believe I did it justice. Um, but yeah, I'm a little rusty on explaining what everything means, and I know what it means, but at the same time, I didn't want to throw it all in there, and it's hard to be able to establish an aesthetic distance between you and your crowd without getting them confused. And that's where I was at. Do I just express just the basic programming? Like the cat, the rabbit, the horse, right? The bow and arrow or whatever, the toxin, and the mixing of the DNA. Should I just talk about that? Because that's implanted in every single movie, some way, shape, or form. It's, I believe, it's to hypnotize us, to program us, to accept these things when they do come, and also designed to put us to sleep. I believe it's exactly what a hypnotist does. They throw out certain words certain symbols, and it does something to our subconscious. I believe if you're not prayed up, or if you're not paying attention to it, because I know that since I haven't been doing these decodes, a part of me's like went to sleep, and I have to like relearn all this stuff all over again. And it's not even relearning it, but just like staying in shape. Like your body knows, your body knows how. It's like boxing or martial arts or something, right? Your body knows the moves, but to get it back into shape, fighting shape again, takes some time. And I believe the same thing happens when you decode these things. And then on top of that, movies are layered as well, right? Not all movies are just about the basic symbolism. Some movies have multiple layers to them, and that movie did have a secret agenda to it, a different layer to it. And I try to just pull from both layers, and some layers even have even more layers than that. I mean, some movies, just depends on like the director or the possibly uh, the demonic energy that's pumped into the movie, right? Because a lot of these movies, and same thing with music, their masters are prayed for, like just like in music, right? So their albums are prayed over, right? A lot of them are even sacrificed over, so they can get that energetic bump from it, blessings from the dark side, from the devil. So another thing, you got to stay prayed up when you watch movies, and I don't I won't go into all that kind of stuff, but they're there. There are layers of decoding movies, and then yeah. So that movie, I pulled from whatever I saw, and I tried to. There was a lot more in that movie. They had the basic stuff that I even left out too, like the whole '88 thing, and yeah. Anyway, I won't go into it. Just watch the decode. It's pretty decent. It's self-explanatory. Ironically, like the truther community has always joked, or not joked, but we all know that Santa Claus is Satan, right? It's just the wool's been pulled over our eyes, and we've been lied to, and they decorate it behind. They they pull from a little bit of Christianity, they pull from paganism, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not Jesus Christ, it's not biblical, and therefore, anything that's not of the Bible is, that's not of God. It's technically the AC, right? The Antichrist spirit. Um, but yeah, so go back and watch it. Nobody watched it. Kind of bummed out about that. I spent a lot of time doing that, and it took a little piece out of me because I wasn't ready for it. I just jumped into it from not decoding for almost a whole year, or not a whole year, probably like what 6, 7 months, 8 months since the Frank decode, and then I was getting hit with copyrights and totally bummed me out. All right, Exodus 15:1. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. So now Pharaoh and his company have been turned into the horse and his rider. I find that no coincidence. I believe that that is a clear indication to an end time parallel, right? The horse and the rider. And there's a few of these verses throughout this chapter and the last chapter. I pointed this out last time, that all of a sudden now Pharaoh and the Egyptians are now the horse and the rider. Why is that? Why are they touching on two different things? But at the same time, yeah, he was a horseman and the rider, but they were very adamant on pointing out Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh this, Pharaoh that, Pharaoh hardened his heart. But now when it comes to the song, there's this rider and this horseman, the horseman and the rider. And I believe that's touching on both the end from the beginning and the beginning from the end. All right, so if you're unfamiliar with what we do on this channel, um, channeling you in, is we decode the Bible. Of course, always read the Bible first and foremost for what it is, literally, not figuratively, um, not allegorically, not parallelly. Just read it literally, and then watch this channel if you want to see if there's anything a little bit deeper going on. Uh, You know, again, I believe the Bible. We should be reading it just the way it is first and foremost. But I also believe that the Bible is very layered, just like the devil copies everything that God does. Just like in the Bible, there's deeper things. Even Jesus spoke in parables, right? Because there's deeper meanings to parables. We find the exact same thing, that if Jesus is God, then therefore the Bible is full of parables. The Bible is meant to be deciphered and decoded, um, especially those with the eyes and ears to see, right? And that's what we're conveying. That's what we're decoding here. Um, I'm trusting the Holy Spirit to guide me, and I'm sharing the findings with you. You don't have to take it as law. Just take it with a grain of salt. We are the salt of the world. We have not lost our flavor. All right. Okay. So again, on this first verse, I see a clear connection with the end time book. Exodus 15:2. And the Lord is my strength and song, and he's become my salvation. He is my God, and I will prepare him a habitation. My father's God, I will exalt him. The Lord is my strength and my song. Okay, so again, I'll show you end time connections. So in Revelation, they sung a new song, saying, "Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof." Okay, so they're singing songs all through Revelation. Remember the angels in heaven, and then also the 144, and so on and so forth. And they sung a song, as it were a new song, before the throne, before the four beasts and the elders. And no man could learn that song but the 144. Okay? All right, so there are songs being sung. I'm just showing you that there's a lot of comparable things going on in this chapter, or in Exodus, as well as Revelation. All right, 15:3. And the Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Uh, I find it really strange that the Lord is being talked of about being a man way back in Exodus. And we know that the Lord, obviously, God can make himself a man if he wants, because therefore he's Jesus, right? Um, there's no limit to God's power. Obviously, he can be man and God and being in heaven, and as well being a man here. If you don't believe otherwise, then you're limiting the power of God. Is this lost in translation, something going on? Possibly, but we know for a fact that the Lord can easily be a man. And if you don't believe that, then you don't believe in Jesus. Exodus 15:4. Pharaoh's chariots and his host hath he cast into the sea. His chosen captains also drowned in the Red Sea. So if you don't know where we're at by now, so in the last chapter, well, everybody knows the Exodus story. So, Pharaoh and his hosts were consumed by the sea because God split the Red Sea, right? The splitting of the Red Sea was the narrow path. And now they're rejoicing over God's works, God's wonders. Exodus 15:5. One second. One second. How to get caught up. All right. 15:5 again. The depths have covered them. They sank to the bottom as a stone. Thy right hand, O Lord, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, hath dashed in pieces the enemy. So here we go, what we talked about before. Remember the right hand and the left hand. Remember the whole Visca Pisces thing that represented? We all thought it was like the right and brain thing, but it's probably more along the lines, because if we're going to use, if we're going to decode things from the Bible, therefore we have to use the Bible to decode it. Um, um, so the 153 fishes is what I'm referring to, right? The Visca Pisces 153. Go back and watch that video. So the right hand represents God's right hand eternal promises, and the left hand temporal promises. So God's eternal promises, which I'm doing the notions with my hands right now, and I'm getting my hands mixed up. Obviously, I don't know my right from my left. God's right hand promises represent his eternal promises, like salvation, right? Like love, belief, faith, the word. Those are God's eternal promises, and much more, of course, right? And I'm just giving examples. And temporal promises represent the temporal needs that are met, right? Your food every day, you have shelter, somewhere to sleep, um, those temporal things that are just temporal, that are temporary, but God still promises them. To put money in your pocket, to have your everyday meds. Oh no, everyday needs met, not your meds. You need to pray to God to get off those meds, but don't just get off. Anyway, I probably need some everyday meds after this video. I'll tell you that much. Anywho, as we keep on going, Exodus 15:7. And in the greatness of thine excellency thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sentest forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble. Okay? And we can see those right hand things. That's what destroyed Pharaoh, right? It's just like salvation. Your salvation, so the end time parallel with that is, in the end time, your salvation in Christ, right? Your belief in the blood is your salvation. That's your right hand. You're within God's right hand, right? And that's what destroys the enemy. Those eternal promises that conquer the enemy. All right, and then right here in 15:7, we also have the mention of wrath. Okay, so we can see that wrath is mentioned in here, and I believe again that to be an end time parallel, for the simple reason that they're delivered before the wrath, just like Matthew 24 describes, and same thing with Revelation 6, 7, and 8, right? So God's chosen people, or God's people, are delivered right before the wrath that happens at the end of the tribulation. So the four horsemen, I did a video on this, that Matthew 24 aligns with Revelation. So the four horsemen, whatever goes on during the whole four horsemen thing, is considered the tribulation. And then great tribulation happens / wrath. So everything past Revelation 7 is considered wrath, right? So you have all the sealing of the 144 all right here, right? And then right here, I pointed out that right after the 144, you can see the rest of the believers in heaven. Right here in Revelation 7:9. So after Zebulun was the last tribe sealed, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, all nations and kindred and people and tongues stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Okay? So if there was just the 144, I don't think there'd be, if that's referring to the 12 tribes being sealed, it wouldn't be of all nations, kindreds, people, and tongues. That's referring to something else happens immediately after the 144 is sealed, and then lo and behold, a great multitude is seen in heaven. And then after this chapter, we see in Revelation 8 wrath. After the seventh seal, after the seventh seal, there was a silence in heaven. In heaven, about a space of a half an hour, right? And he was given the 7 trumpets, and then all the trumpet blasts, and all the bad stuff starts happening. Um, I believe it's very similar to what's going on back then. Right? So I believe that the Egyptians are allegory, right? It's also Pharaoh and the Egyptians are like, like it's an allegory for the end times of this world, right? I don't think I need to beat a dead horse. I think we got that. All right, Exodus 15:8. And with the blast of thy nostrils, the waters were gathered together. The flood stood upright as a heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. All right, so again, right here, you have the blast of the nostrils, just like how Jesus is going to destroy Satan once and for all. How does God destroy the dark forces, right? Anybody who knows their Bible really well knows that it's through the ruach, the breath. Okay? And 2 Thessalonians 2:8, then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Right? The ruach, the definition means the spirit or the wind, like the blast of the nostrils or the breath. And we clearly see that in Exodus 15:8. And with the blast of the nostrils, the waters were gathered together. The flood stood upright as a heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. We see the exact same thing, just in a different way. God destroys the enemy the exact same way, just in a different way later on. Just explained different. It's by the same ruach, by the same spirit. He destroys the forces of darkness. Pretty cool. If you have the eyes to see, you see it. All right. Exodus 59. And the enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. Thou did blow with thy wind, the sea covered them. They sank as lead in the mighty waters. So here we go with another wind connection to the Ruach, of course. 15:11. Who is like unto thee, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? Thou stretchest out thy right hand, the earth swallow them. Again, we got the right hand. promises, defeating the forces of darkness. Thou in thy mercy hast led forth the people which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength unto the holy habitation. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold of the inhabitants of Palestina. I was thinking to myself, why Palestina? Um, because it was the next city over on the way to Canaan, which is their destination. 15:15. The dukes of Edom shall be amazed, the mighty men of Moab. Trembling shall take hold upon them, and all inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. So again, I was like, why Moab? Why are they bringing them up? Because they are like considered really mighty men. The Moabites. That's all I got for that one. All right, 15:16. Fear and dread shall fall upon them by the greatness of thine arm. They shall be as still as stone till the people pass over. O Lord, till the people pass over which thou hast purchased. So again, we have this covenant language, right? And that's exactly what we see in the end times. All the people that will be delivered and be spared are the people who were bought and paid for by the blood of Christ. So again, back then, they had the covenant of the law, right? The Old Testament, a testament is a covenant is a contract. Did a video on all that. That's the new contract. This is referring to the old contract, but it's all the same thing, you know. Thou shalt bring them in and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for thee to dwell in the sanctuary, O Lord, which thy hands have established. The Lord shall reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots and with his horsemen into the sea, and the Lord brought again the waters of the sea upon them. But the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, saying, Ye to the Lord, for he had triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown to the sea. Again, the horse and the rider. Exodus 15:22. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out to the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days wilderness. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. I believe this is, whenever I hear the 3 days thing, we've studied this over and over and over. There's always, every story has some kind of 3 day journey. And I believe that, and it's usually into the wilderness. I believe that's always or usually an allegory for Christ when he died and he descended, into the lower lands, the wilderness for 3 days and found no water. So water is also represents like the word of God or or God. Like if you go into the wilderness of the lower worlds, that's a place that's absent of God. So therefore, to me, it sounds like a Jesus allegory. And I'll explain this. I'll sum this all up in a second. And when they came to Mara, they could not drink of the waters of Mara, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Mara. Exodus 15:24. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree which he had cast into the waters. The waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statue, an ordinance, and there he proved them. and said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in the sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all of his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord, that he healeth thee. Okay, so what's going on here? What's up with this 3 days into the wilderness? There's no water. Then the waters they do find were made bitter. Well, let's look deeper into this. Let's check out Exodus 15:22 explained. Let's start from there. This is all lumped up together. All right, so I went through the commentary, and this was the best one I can explain that coincided with, paralleled, or aligned with my beliefs of what this was trying to convey. And if you give me a second, I'm going to get me a drink of water. Oh, it's sweet. All right, 1522 through 27. See, they lumped it all together too as well. I won't read this whole thing, but I'll read just the parts where I like. In the wilderness of Shur, the Israelites had no water. At Marah, they had water, but it was bitter, so they could not drink it. God can make bitter to us that from which we promise ourselves most and often does so in the wilderness of this world, that our wants and disappointments in the creature may drive us to the Creator. Okay? That's a beautiful explanation of these verses. Right? So the 3 days journey into the wilderness is an allegory for Jesus. The wilderness with no water represents the desolation in man, a place without salvation in God. Right? When we're in Egypt, we're always thirsting for more. And Jesus tells us that he has a water that will quench our thirst, living waters. And when we drink from the waters of this world, we'll always thirst for more. Remember, God is the tree of life, turning that bitter water into sweet. Okay? So let's check out John 7:37-39. In the last day, the great day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried, saying, If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. He that believeth on me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. But this spake he of the Spirit, which they believe on him should receive. For the Holy Ghost was not yet given, because that Jesus was not yet glorified. Jesus is our living waters, right? So now when we go back to this tree being thrown in, it makes a lot more sense, right? Because before knowing that, you're like, well, why do you throw in a tree? Because God makes everything sweet, right? Okay, so back to the end time allegory, though, or parallel. Well, don't we find wormwood in Revelation as well? And the name of the star is called wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and men died of the waters because they were made bitter. That gives us a whole new meaning of maybe of what this whole star wormwood is. Maybe it's not talking about like literal waters. Maybe it's talking about something else. Who knows? But I think it's a slam dunk. We have all these other parallels, and you're like, oh, you're just looking and you're reaching too far in. But they were made bitter, the waters. It's there, man. There's just so much of it. Okay, I think at this point we have irrefutable end time evidence. That's to be debated, I guess. Exodus 15:27, and they came to Elim, where were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. And they encamped there by the waters. The end. Okay, on to the next topic. The last topic of the day is Hanukkah. I'll read you this article, uh, the history of Hanukkah, and I pulled this up before. That's a good little article on Hanukkah. Um, Again, Hanukkah is not a solemn feast day. It's actually it's not even found in the Old Testament, in the old Jimmy, the King James. It's not found in the Tanakh either. It's found in the Apocrypha, with all the extra books are found, like all the added books. So, with that being said, is it mandatory, or is it something that we should be observing? Um, so we can counteract the whole secularism. I do it for that reason. I mean, it's closer to God than Christmas, I believe, but it's at your own discretion. It's not a solemn feast day. It's not mandatory. um, this year, I'm not going to be putting it into practice because I don't find it in my Bible um, for us to be practicing. The story of the Maccabees, like again, it's coming from the Apocrypha, and I don't read out. I don't read from the Apocrypha. Did it not happen? Did it happen? I believe it did happen, but it's just something that we should, I think, be conscientious of where it comes from. The majority of the Jews do celebrate it, so there's some truth to it. And oh, right here, it even says not part of the Jewish canon of the Hebrew Bible. But again, just like I just said, I'd rather celebrate this than Christmas for sure. Christmas is no longer about Christ Mass. And then on top of that, if you break down what the origins of Christmas and where it came from, and it kind of bums me out, man. Anywho, let's read this article. Hanukkah is one of the few Jewish holidays not mentioned in the Bible. The story of how Hanukkah came to be is contained in the books of the first and second Maccabees, which are not part of the Jewish canon of the Hebrew Bible. These books tell the story of the Maccabees, a small band of Jewish fighters who liberated the land of Israel from the Syrian Greeks who occupied it. Who corrupted, same thing, huh? Under the reign of Antiochus, Antichrist the Fourth, Epiphanes, and the Syrian Greeks sought to impose their Hellenistic culture, which many Jews found attractive. Interesting. By 167 BCE, Antichrist intensified the campaign by defiling the temple in Jerusalem and banning the Jewish practice. The Maccabees, led by 5 sons of the priest of Matthias, especially Judah, waged a 3-year campaign that culminated in the cleaning and the rededication of the temple. Since they were unable to celebrate the holy day of Sukkot at its proper time in early autumn, the victorious Maccabees decided that Sukkot should be celebrated once they rededicated the temple, which they did on the 25th of the month of Kislev. In the year 164 BCE, since Sukkot lasts 7 days, this became a time frame adopted for Hanukkah. Josephus' account. I'm just going to keep on going until it doesn't make any sense no more to go. About 250 years after these events, the first century Jewish historian Flavius Josephus wrote his account of the origins of the holiday. Josephus referred to the holiday as a festival of lights and not as Hanukkah. Josephus seems to be connecting the newfound liberty that resulted from the events with the image of light. And the holiday still is often referred to by the title Josephus gave it. The Talmud and the miracle of oil. By the early Rabbinic period, about a century later, at the time that the Mishnah, the first compilation of the oral Rabbinic law included in the Talmud, was redacted, the holiday had become known by the name of the Hanukkah dedication. However, the Mishnah does not give us any details concerning the rules and customs associated with the holiday. It is in the Gemara, a commentary on the Mishnah of the Babylonian Talmud, that we are given more details and can clearly see the development, both the holiday and the stories associated with it. The discussion of Hanukkah is mentioned in the Tractate Shabbat. Only 3 lines are devoted to the events of Hanukkah, while 3 pages detail when, where, and how the Hanukkah lights should be lit. 9 things you didn't know about Hanukkah. Completed approximately 600 years ago, or years after the events of the Maccabees, the Talmud contains the extant version of the famous story of the miraculous jar of oil that burned for 8 days. The Talmud relates the story in context of a discussion about the fact that fasting and grieving are not allowed on Hanukkah. Wow. In order to understand why the observance of Hanukkah is so important, the rabbis recount the story of the miraculous jar of oil. Perhaps the Amoraim, the sages of the Talmud, were retelling an old oral legend in order to associate the holiday with that what they believed to be a blatant supernatural miracle. Although the seemingly miraculous victory of the Maccabees over the Syrian Greeks was certainly part of the holiday narrative, this event still lies within the natural human realm. The rabbis may have felt this to be insufficient justification for the holiday gaining legal stature that would prohibit fasting and including the saying of certain festival prayers. Therefore, the story of the supernatural event centering on the oil, a miracle, would unquestionably answer any concerns about the legitimacy of celebrating the holiday. And there goes my batteries getting low. Hanukkah in the modern times. Hanukkah gained the new meaning with the rise of Zionism. As the early pioneers in Israel found themselves fighting to defend against attacks, they began to connect with the ancient Jewish fighters who stood their ground in the same place. The holiday of Hanukkah, this positive portrayal of the Jewish fighter, spoke to the reality of the early Zionists who felt particularly connected to the message of freedom and liberty. Hanukkah traditions. From around the world, Hanukkah began to find new expressions in the years leading up to the founding of the modern state of Israel. In the post-Holocaust world, Jews are actually aware of the issues raised by Hanukkah: oppression, identity, religious freedom and expression, and the need to fight for nation independence. Hanukkah has developed into a holiday rich with historical significance, physical and supernatural miracles, narratives, and dialogue with Jewish history. Alrighty, I think we observed it. It's up to you if you want to put it to practice. That's between you and God, your own spiritual walk. It's not mandatory, or no feast day observance is mandatory. Um, don't let anybody judge you on your feast day. That's scripture, or Sabbath, or anything like that. But I would rather be caught practicing God's feast days than secular holidays. So that's the reason why I observe them. I like to know them and embody them and practice them because I believe in the new kingdom when Jesus does return and establish the millennial reign. we'll be putting these feast days into practice. Is this a solemn feast day? I don't believe it is. It's not found in the King James, nor the Talmud, or not the Talmud, but the Tanakh or the Torah. And yeah, so that's between you and God if you want to practice these things. I used to practice it because I was all about it. I was all about, you know, the Jews and God and all that stuff. And um, over the years we grow and we see what we should be doing and not should be doing. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing this, practicing Hanukkah, but we should know where it comes from and the origins of that. If we're going to take time to learn about Christmas, we should be taking time to learn about Hanukkah. All right. That's all I have for today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And for the people out there celebrating Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. Um, don't forget about Jesus. Jesus is the way, the truth, the life. And there's no other way to God besides through Jesus. So don't forget about that when you're practicing Hanukkah. And I'm going to drop some more Bible verses on you. No, I'm just kidding. Anywho, if you have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today, and I know I laid some hardcore stuff on you, and I know the first half an hour of this video is rough. I know for people that love aliens or have invested a lot of emotional connection towards everything that we see in the sky that's alien like, it's demons. Well, you're not reading your Bible in its full context, because nowhere does it say, oh, I put demons in the sky all day long, like, or all night long. No. The stuff that we see in the sky is described as you know angels or demons. Remember, if there's demons up there, there's got to be angels, and we know an angel's a messenger and a message is a sign. So it coincides. It all coincides with each other. I think it's more biblical. It's not more biblical. It's 100% without doubt biblical. Um, so don't get caught up in the bull crap too. Whatever kind of psyop they're doing with the whole drone things, I don't know what it is. No one knows exactly. But don't let it muddy the waters. Don't let it don't just write everything off that you see in the sky. Oh, it's just a drone now. Use discernment for all things. And on top of that, not everything in the sky is friendly either. I'm going to give you that. We don't know what these things are. No one knows exactly anything. We're doing our best. We're listening to God within. And, we're brothers and sisters in Christ. And then even if you're not saved or whatever, you're still a brother and sister. Uh, yeah. Anywho, that's it. Peace.